So here are three simple steps on how you can start your virtual speaking career today. My name is Christopher Kai. I've been speaking for the last 20 years. Used to work for American Express on Wall Street in New York City, where I'm from. For those of you who have a job and don't like it, I was there many years ago. I would go into work every day and I'm like, why am I here? I want to shoot myself and I don't want to shoot myself because I really love life. So in my mid 20s, I worked at American Express. At the time, I was writing a book. It was a college success guide. And at the point where I knew I was going to be close to finishing my first draft, I said to myself, I am done with this job. I need to get out of here. So I quit my job, sold my apartment, came out to California, wrote my first book, and started my career as a professional speaker. That was 20 years ago, plus 20 years plus years ago, actually. So the three simple steps to do this is actually quite simple. But as I was talking to Richard Saul Wurman recently, he is the founder of TED Talk, the TED conference. He's the person that created TED Talk 30 plus years ago. He's a brilliant man. If you get a chance to read his book, Understanding, it is literally a Russian roulette of knowledge where every single page you turn, you have no idea how each page will blow your mind. So he talked about how learning is when you remember what you're interested in. And that has such a profound impact on me because I hated school as a kid because I wasn't interested in learning about Macbeth and Shakespeare and like all these things they teach you, like geometry and trigonometry. So I realized I didn't really learn a lot. So the best way to learn is through stories. When you hear stories, epic stories, then it allows you to remember better. And this is why there's a Stanford marketing professor named Jennifer Acker. And she found that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. So therefore, I'm going to share a story on the three simple steps on how you can create your first virtual speaking business. Again, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've shared stages, same conference, different years, same year as Richard Branson, Bill Gates, heads of states from Jamaica, from Switzerland. I've been doing it for 20 years. But anyway, three things. I'm going to share a story. So imagine you are in New York City right now and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You're outside Grand Central Station, and all of a sudden you hear this very loud siren. This red ambulance starts barreling down Fifth Avenue. And you hear the siren, you hear the noise, you're looking around to see if there's a fire. And the red truck, they call it the Beast. The red trucks are FDNY, which is the fire people. So they come to where you are, literally 5 steps away from where you are. And from this red ambulance walks out 3 people. The first person that walks out is Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres with her bright, bold smile. She's dancing around, and Ellen shows you one letter, and that letter is E. She walks to the right. Next person that comes off the ambulance is Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is in her white dress, her famous white dress, where there's air that's blowing her dress higher, so it looks very sexy. And Marilyn Monroe looks at you and shares the letter M. Lastly, she moves to the right, and the person that comes out of the red ambulance in New York City is Sarah Lawrence. And Sarah Lawrence is literally 7 foot tall, and she's staring down at you with her Hunger Game look and a big bow of arrow. And on the arrow, the tip of the arrow, there's the letter S. So you have Ellen DeGeneres, Marilyn Monroe, and Sarah Lawrence from Hunger Games. Each of them hold a character in their hands, EMS. So the 3 simple steps that you need to create your first virtual speaking business or to scale your speaking business, because you might be doing this as a speaker or as a coach, but you're not doing it at the scale and level you want, whether your stages that you're on right now or the speaker fee that you want to command, or you just want to be able to impact more people, because that's ultimately what it's about. So EMS, Ellen DeGeneres is the representing the E, Marilyn Monroe represents the M, and Sarah Lawrence represents the S. So E stands for expert. You have to be perceived as an expert. You don't necessarily have to be an expert, because the expert term just means that you have an awareness, a knowledge, an authority that someone else doesn't have. So you first have to understand expertise. You might think you need tens of years of experience or 10, 20 years of experience. I had a client Name Shazad. She was 20 years old when she started my program. Within a few months, she was able to define what her expertise was. And ultimately, she booked her first speech at a key in Sweden and made $4,000. So you either have expertise that you've been at a company and you built the company, or you have what I call borrowed credibility, where you have someone like Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote a book called um, what was it called? Outliers, where he studies people that are outliers who are doing great things like Bill Gates or the Beatles or Bono. And he found that the 10,000 hours of master rule, when you practice 10,000 hours, then you are perceived as an expert. Now, what you may or may not realize is that though many people have heard of the 10,000 our master rule that Malcolm Gladwell wrote in his book Outliers, where he borrowed the credibility of a guy named K. Anders Ericsson, who is a professor out of Florida, and he's actually the guy that did the research. So that's an example of how, if you want to be perceived as an expert, you either have built the company over a long period of time, or you reference experts like a K. Anders Ericsson, who studied people over years and found out that the people that are at the high peak performance in the world spent 10,000 hours of mastery to get there. It doesn't matter whether you're a programmer like Bill Gates or a musician like the Beatles. And what Malcolm Gladwell did was he borrowed the credibility of K. Anders Ericsson. So again, the first step to becoming a speaker or even a coach, frankly, is to have a clearly defined expertise. My expertise, for instance, is what I call story-based leadership, where I teach my clients all around the world to use their story to inspire their team, to build better income, to be better at sales, to build better countries. And so first step, know what your expertise is, define that, borrow the credibility, find research online that adds a lot of weight to what you say you do. Because if you don't do that, if you don't borrow credibility, then it's just your opinion. But as soon as you find research, literally just type in science of. So for instance, if you Google science of storytelling, you'll look up this woman named Jennifer Acker, who is a professor out of Stanford. Or if, let's say, I wrote a book on networking with billionaires a few years back, and I found out that Dr. Ron Burt studies network science, and he found that networking is the number one best predictor, or the number one best predictor for your career success is networking. So again, I can talk about networking. I can talk about how important it is. Yes, I have written a book, which gives me authority, but I reference a gentleman named Ron Burt, who is at one of the most prestigious schools in the world called the University of Chicago, and he studied network science. So it goes from my opinion of networking being really good for your career to, based on an expert borrowed credibility, then now it clearly is an expertise that I can share. So again, first step is know your expertise, find that borrowed credibility. Second step is M, which is for marketing. In all things product-wise, whether you have an iPhone or a Samsung or sneakers from Nikes, you have to market. And marketing is really explained in one word, which is emotion. So in the speaking world, there are really 10 specific marketing gems that you really need. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the bottom line is you have to market yourself. And marketing yourself is not just when I hear people say, oh, Christopher, I'm a really good speaker, and people have told me I'm a great speaker and I should be paid for it. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't mean much. You can be the best speaker in the world. You can speak better than I am. I speak really fast. I'm not the best speaker, but I'm a good speaker. But the bottom line is you need to market the solutions that you provide, the experience, the expertise you created, gained, and had that research to market yourself. And so the simplest thing is start with your bio. If you Google speaking bureau, keynote speakers, you look at the top tier speakers. I'm on various speaking bureaus. If you just Google literally speaking bureaus, which are a fancy term for agents for speakers like myself, and then keynote speaker, you'll start looking at the bios. And you start seeing some commonality where that bio has a presence. And the higher the price point that speaker bio is, the more famous they are, the more reputable they are, the more expertise they are, the more books they've written, the more unique stories they have. But ultimately, it's about marketing yourself by starting with 10 specific things. And I'll just share one of them, which is you have to have a global speaking bio, a speaker bio, what I call that. And the most basic example is this. I can say I'm a speaker. Who cares? Anyone can say that. If I say I'm a national speaker, even better. Less people can say that. If I say I'm an international speaker, even better, because it's about standing out. But if I said I'm a Fortune 100 global speaker, that means I'm being crystal clear that in those 4 words, you already know that my marketing of myself as a speaker is already high level. And if you want to get paid a lot of money and make a lot of impact, then you have to be really, really clear on who's hiring you. The people that will have the biggest budgets are the Fortune 100 companies, the Fortune 500 companies. So they're the ones that will look at your bio first. It's literally the base of any marketing for a speaker. So make sure that when you write your bio, you have to have an executive level bio. It's not easy to do, but at least you can reference speaking bureau, keynote speakers, and start looking look at what I'm talking about. And lastly, S stands for sales. You can have the marketing down, you can have the expertise, but bluntly speaking, if you don't understand the psychology of sales and the science of sales, and it really is a science that we all need certain things like food, shelter, and clothing, but people need to want your product. They need to want your service. They need to want you speaking. They're not going to all want to hire you like myself because they have cool hair. They want to hire you beyond the cool hair part, but they want to hire you for your substance and how, though I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm getting paid a lot of money for a 1 45-minute speech, but they're not just paying me for that 1 45-minute speech. Just like if you were to hire Katy Perry or Chris Rock to give you a 45-minute comedy act or a 45-minute concert, they're hiring you for all the different experiences that you've been able to have to summarize into a very concise fashion, just as a keynote speaker. So you have a comedian, a rock star, and as a keynote speaker, you are the rock star at a business event. That's why the best events in the world have speakers and hire speakers like myself to really be that rock star, to really bring that thunder, fire, and spotlight into that room so they can share with them very specifically, what have I learned in the last 20 years from working from American Express to helping companies scale to hundreds of millions of dollars, to writing 6 books that I can teach them in 45 minutes to give them a macro understanding of how they can excel in their careers. So the sales part really is understanding that to sell to a clientele that's going to pay you 5 figures for a speech, that's a bit of a high bar to cross. But if you start understanding that sales really is, well, what are their problems? How can you provide a solution? How can you build the expertise that solves their problem, market yourself in a way, and ultimately have a sense of persuasion ethically to really say to them, look, this actually happened maybe about a year ago, where they can hire someone like a Simon Sinek, which I don't know if you know, Simon Sinek, who created this TED Talk type conference where we actually got well known for TEDx Talk. And I think he bills at about $100,000. And again, it changes over time, but ultimately, let's say he gets billed at $100,000. I'm not at $100,000 yet, a little bit lower than that, but I'm like, okay, you can pay $100,000 or a little bit less for Christopher Kai. What I'm saying is, the sales aspect is, it's called contrast principles. If they don't have $100,000, but they have 50,000 or 20,000, then that's something that will be in my ballpark for now. And that's ultimately something that you have to understand. But it's also about having a sense of urgency, about having a sense of authority, where there's a guy named Robert Cialdini. He's a psychologist, and he studied persuasion. He studied the science of persuasion. And so when you want to understand sales, you have to understand persuasion. And the biggest difference between the online world and the offline world, at least from sales standpoint, it's more B2B sales, where again, if I have a program online and I want to offer this program, which is a lower price point than my keynote speeches, that's more B2C, where I'm selling to a customer, and that will require more engagement, more nurturing, more developing, more building rapport with the client, because they might not know me. Now, in the B2B world with keynote speaking, it's almost the difference between a date and a relationship. In the B2B world, it's more of like, hey, look, here's my website. Here's my speaking bureau. Here's my speaking reel. Here's my marketing. Here are the things that I've done, my testimonials, my story, my speech topics, and we can have a conversation. And with one conversation, here's your 5-figure speaking fee. It's pretty simple, just like a date. You meet someone at a restaurant, you meet someone at a bar, you meet someone at a lounge. Within a span of 15, 20 minutes, you already kind of know if you're going to date this guy or girl or not, right? Whereas in the B2C world, it's a lot different. It's a lot more longer term, building up rapport. But the point of being a virtual speaker is you really get to get paid the most amount of money for the least amount of time spent and impact the most people. I actually got paid $50 for my first paid speech 20 years ago. I would have never imagined that a kid growing up in New York City was punished and bullied in class for talking too much, had a reading disability, and I was super short throughout all of 8 years. For me to be able to speak, where I got paid $50 for my first speech, but I'm paid up to $30,000 for a speaking engagement, for one speaking engagement. Okay. So know that it's possible. To summarize, 3 simple steps to start your virtual speaking career is this. Remember, Ellen DeGeneres with the E, Marilyn Monroe with the M, and Sarah Lawrence with the S. I do that because Ellen starts with the E, Marilyn Monroe starts with the M, Sarah starts with the S. I created these visual images because if you want to learn how to remember better, you have to be interested, but also learn the science of remembering. There's a great book called Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer. Phenomenal book. Look up Moonwalking with Einstein, where they teach you that visual images helps a lot. And Jennifer Acker talks about stories. It helps a lot because you have to remember things. Because I could have easily said, here are the 3 things: expertise, marketing, and sales. But if I don't create this whole story around it with really distinct images, then you're probably not going to remember it. And I hope you remember it because it's interesting. And I hope that's helpful. Click on the subscribe button, comment on what you feel your expertise is, and I'll see if the expertise might be a good fit to market in the world. So again, you want to start your speaking career, believe that you can, have a growth mindset, and know that it's all about how you define your perceived expertise. Make sure you have that broader credibility. Know that it's about marketing, 10 gems of marketing wisdom, but just start with the first one, which is bio. Go to Google speaking bureau, keynote speakers, and you'll see what I mean about bio. Look at the details they have. And lastly, sales is all about persuasion. Look at a guy named Robert Cialdini. I'll put the links on the bottom, but ultimately, it's all about, in sales, it's about persuading someone that you are an authority figure and you are a busy man or woman, and they should be really itching and wanting and craving to have you on stage because you are that rock star to share your wisdom that you've learned over the years to help them build their business, build a brand, and build their life in a better, succinct, and more efficient fashion. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, click on the subscribe link. I'll be posting more of these videos, and I'll attach down to the bottom some of the things I mentioned in this video. And again, comment, what is your expertise? And happy to see if that's a commercially viable expertise. So you start your business, because just remember that your story is gift to the world. And if you don't share it, you're literally cheating the world from your gifts. And so please do share your story, click on the subscribe button. And thank you so much for watching this video.